little background as to where I come from. I've been in the enterprise software business for about 15, 16 years. 3 times at Oracle. Oracle likes to buy things, and if my brother says they like to buy things, where I go to. They like to invest in companies where so this latest time I've been at Oracle is now we have a Right Now Technologies acquisition. We were the first cloud acquisition that Oracle made service space, which is a hint to the background, right? I'm a CRM guy at my core. I've also been primarily focused, within CRM on customer service and customer care. And within that subspace of enterprise software, I'm not a technologist anymore. My background is in sales strategy. I'm now running our global cloud go-to-market for service at Oracle. And so that gives you a little bit of sense of where the lens I apply when I look at things around identity, privacy, and the IoT conversation that this group is talking about. And so I'm going to do a pretty radical shift away from that world, the world which I'm going to talk about today. And you'll see where these two come together and why it matters so much to me, both from a professional perspective, but also from an individual perspective. And that's really, this idea around vendor relationship management. It's an interesting term. It's an arcane term in the sense that if you haven't heard it, you may not know where this is going, but I'll walk through it slowly and so you get a better understanding of what we're taking to it. And the picture that we use in this actually has some meaning, and I'll get to it, meaning from there. A little bit of background. Today I'm presenting on behalf of Customer Commons, which is a nonprofit organization that's focused around protecting the individual's privacy identity, empowering individuals to engage in a bigger marketplace. I am a founding board member, along with several of the folks that who are really the thought leaders in this space that I'll be presenting about. So before I get down that path, what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk a little bit through what I like to call why we are where we are today, and start really with this idea that of the internet and how it came about. Forwarding. Okay. That's fine. I'll forward it this way. As we know, I like to call the mid-90s the age of innocence. Right. This is when there was this explosion of activity around technology that actually connected for the first time ever. Technology connected people like my mom, to her relatives and so forth. It was an exciting time. It was a time when there was a lot of possibilities, and in fact, I like to joke. It was an era where the phrase "you've got mail" actually had romantic implications, right? In 2015, the phrase "you've got mail," if you ran a movie about it, would be about some psycho in the Eastern Bloc that's threatening you with all kinds of stuff, right? What happened along the way? Something either went wrong or maybe we were too naive, right? So right around that time, in 1999, there was a group of, I would say, philosophers, thinkers, and just interesting guys that got together and they wrote what I would say is a rule book for the modern era, and it was called the Clue Train Manifesto. Has anybody heard of the Clue Train Manifesto? Yeah, so the first time I heard from you. It started out as a website, and it was just a bunch of clues, things that are happening in the world that people should be aware of around technology and the internet. The book came later. The website's still up and running, cluetrain.com, and but basically, their conversation really started around this, which is, powerful conversation has begun. Through the internet, people are discovering and inventing new ways to share relevant knowledge with blinding speed. As a direct result, markets are getting smarter and faster than most companies, right? So, fairly simple thesis, and that was really, it's at cluetrain.com. And the individuals that put that together and eventually published the book were, Rick Levine, Christopher Locke, Dave Weinberger, and my friend Doc Searls. So Project VRM is something that was built around Doc Searls' work in this space, and I'll get to where Project VRM sits in the world of Clue Train. But ClueTrain is essentially 95 theses that they put up on the web. And it started with Doc's first positive this. All markets are conversations. You go back millennia, and a market is essentially a place where people get together and connect. It's about relationships, right? It's about how you establish those. But as you go down through the clues, you get to one that Christopher Locke wrote, which I think resonates the most today, which is, we are not seats, eyeballs, or end users or consumers. We are human beings, and our reach exceeds your grasp. Deal with it, right? In many ways, I think that was a warning, right? That what's coming is really going to radically alter the way that we as humans are going to interact with each other in ways that we couldn't anticipate. In many ways, from that perspective, ClueTrain was ahead of the time, kind of predicting where we are today from an identity and privacy perspective. So what changed? What caused all of this to happen? I simplify this because I'm in sales and marketing. Sales and marketing people can't remember things beyond three, so it's three zeros, right? So 3 zeros, right? It really what happened was we suddenly went to zero distance between each other. We suddenly required no connections. Before, if I needed to connect to you, I might have to connect to a friend who may know who. Now I can just directly email you. And the third one, I think, has a massive implication. Essentially, it's at zero cost. That caused behavior changes that we weren't really prepared for as a society, right? And so, with that change, the millennia of privacy norms got radically altered. So, from a privacy perspective, Doc likes to talk about, civilized society for the last 5, 7, 8,000 years actually has a standardized, globally recognized privacy standard. It's clothing, right? It's clothing. We know that clothing is a privacy standard, right? But as he likes to say jokingly, on the internet today we're metaphorically nude. Some of us privately maybe, but I don't want to know about any of that. This is the great challenge, and so we took that standard of a normalized, understood global something that's evolved over millennia, and we threw it out the window. So we now have this scenario, right? This is kind of an extreme case where we believe that if we're on the internet, people have right to go look at everything we're looking at. We don't believe that. I think this is what's happening, right? This is the great challenge, right? So, along comes Project VRM. Basically, Doc had been talking about this. Doc Searles has been talking about this for some time, and he was approached by the Berkman Center for Internet Law and Society at the Harvard Law School, and said, they said, stop talking about it, do something. So the Berkman Center is a very interesting place, and what they said when Doc responded to them said, I don't want to live in the world of theory. Right? I don't want to live in the world of this is what may happen. So the reason why the term carries the name project in front of it is projects usually have a finite date. They're usually tasked to develop something. So this is a development project at the Berkman Center at the Harvard Law School. The term VRM came about from the fact that we were enabling companies to provide massive scale with technologies that are known as CRM, like customer relationship management. And it was almost like a reactive, well, companies are getting all of this stuff. We need something too as individuals. And VRM, came about from that. It's an imperfect term, but it is what, the project is called, and it's kind of, stuck as a goal. And so, there's several sort of theses that were laid out as far as the Project VRM itself. Some of them are, well, one of them is, customers must enter relationships with vendors as independent actors. That you should have the power to engage based off your own volition and not be forced to engage. Customers must be the points of integration for their own data. Nobody owns me. As a sales guy, I go sell software and I say, well, yeah, you get to own the customer, sell it. But the fact is that when somebody says, oh, I own the customer, really? I mean, didn't we solve that about 2 centuries ago? Nobody owns me, right? And therefore, my data, I should have some rights around, right? Yep. And again, so that places at, item 3, which is control of the data that they generate and gather, right? Customers should have. And they should be able to assert their own terms. So this is the point, where we're spending a lot of time on, which is the world today, the example we use all the time in this space is there are 42 pages of legalese in the iTunes terms of service. Anybody here ever read them? Right? It's interesting. Even Apple's lawyers think that they're kind of a joke because you read them. There are instances, I think they've removed it now because everyone saw it. There's an instance in there where there's a paragraph that says that you will not use iTunes to run a nuclear power generator. They know nobody reads this stuff, so they threw everything in there, right? Actually, when you talk to the folks at the law school, they'll say that those terms of service are what are known as contracts of adhesion. They're forced upon you. That's not how normal behavior takes place in society. It was an easy way when you achieve scale to say, well, here, you accept this, and we'll provide things to you. They're not enforceable, actually. For the most part, they're not enforceable. So they're kind of bizarre in the way where they exist, but people are stuck with that idea, well, you agreed to my terms of service. Yeah, but you gave me no opportunity to negotiate. We believe that there's actually a bigger market when you ask the customer, how they want their data to be treated, what terms they want it to be to, and I'll get to a little bit more around that. And the fifth piece is really the what I would say the outward-facing one, which is customers must be free to express their demands and intentions outside of any one company's control. The picture I presented to you before with the kid with his little shadow, it's kind of a running story that we've got in the VRM space. So the one large organization that has gone all in on this, and if you follow them very closely, you'll see, they're based up here in Mountain View and in the city of Mozilla. Mozilla has taken a stance that they stand for the individual. The new Firefox browser is aimed at preventing everything from, cookie tracking and all of that to really enabling the individual. And the guy who's leading that effort there is a friend of mine by the name of Sean Bohan. And Sean said one day, we're having these meetings on VRM, and he said, all this data that people are collecting, this marketing data, all this big data stuff that companies are dying to get, all they're doing is they're chasing my shadow. They may understand my shadow, but they don't get me because they don't ask me. Wouldn't it be simpler if I extended a request saying I'm looking for X? Wouldn't that reduce all of the overhead of marketing and actually target marketing better? And so that, chasing the shadow component for us has become a really critical part of the future. Now, as a CRM guy, I know the challenges there as well. If individuals could express intent at scale, it would make everything from manufacturing to marketing to developing products a lot easier. So it's a very aspirational thing, and I'll get to a little bit of what we are thinking about in that space. And so VRM is really that, right? It's a coming together of both customers and companies. And it's about better ways of engaging in the marketplace, right? So, and all of this stuff is up on the projectvrm.org wiki. But when you look at it, businesses have CRM, right? And so, very, very high level, what is CRM really about? I like to say CRM, customer relationship management, is really CRM is customer records management. Relationships really aren't there. That's the missing link in CRM. This is something as somebody who's been doing it for 15 years, I see. I've deployed some of the world's largest deployments of Siebel systems. I have that right now, today. And what we do is we optimize record control on companies, right? Businesses have this very militaristic approach. We target and acquire customers, right? I don't want to be targeted or acquired by anybody, but essentially that's one of the things. CRM is really designed to provide data security, deliver that terms of service, and offer support, right? That's what CRM systems do. The struggle is that customers need something equivalent to engage, right? Because for us as customers, as individuals, we want to reduce the effort. I mean, anybody who's called a large company knows that once you get bounced from one call center to another, you have to tell them all of your information again. They're supposed to be one company, right? What's wrong with it? I know what's wrong on the CRM side, but they should understand who I am if I can quote unquote dock in. And instead of targeting and acquiring me, why don't you enable me to discover and engage? Right? That's an opportunity. Instead of data security, we want to think about as individuals data privacy. We also want to assert our own terms of service, and make our voices heard. Now, companies have all of these massive, voice of the customer programs. I don't even know what that means. The first question I ask when I go in, and it's usually some quote unquote chief customer officer, so when's the last time you sat down with an actual customer? Oh, well, we get all this data, we analyze it. I don't think that's the same as asking a customer, So, the goals of VRM, are about, 7 or 8 things. Ultimately, it's about, because it's a project at the Harvard Law School and it's not a theory-based thing, Doc has been aimed at building out an ecosystem where people can go test ideas. Right? And many of those ideas are housed today under another organization called the Internet Identity Workshop, which now in its 10th year of running and runs every 6 months in Mountain View at the Computer History Museum. A lot of very interesting companies and ideas have come out of that. Many of them have been funded. Personal.com, for example, was raised, I think, close to $100 million out of it. The idea is it has to be actionable because the legal guy is going to do the legal stuff and everything else will fall in between. Make sure that the tools that are put in place are things that individuals will have power to use. One concept that has just come really bouncing back with a fury in 2015 is that those tools at their core be anchored around blockchain. Blockchain is really emerging as a security protocol that global enterprises are looking seriously at. And Microsoft just rolled out a blockchain cloud, so you can develop blockchain. The blockchain is really good because individuals can actually control the data, right? So there's a lot of stuff that's going on in that space. So fast forward to now, a little bit of the story of why all of this wraps together with IoT is Gartner says, and Gartner is the word of God, they're always right? So by 2020, customer will manage 85% of the relationship with an enterprise without interacting with a human. That says IoT to me. I mean, besides IoT, it says a lot of mechanization of activity, right? And also 20 years ago, the average adult managed about 45 relationships, right? You get a relationship with your utility company, with your, basically the organizations around your life, you kind of understood. And you knew what the relationships were, even if you didn't have a formal term of service. You kind of knew how you're going to manage that. Today, that's expanded to around 450. Think of all of those things that you signed up for to receive emails and all of the other points that you're interacting with. The scale of what is going on is beyond comprehension. We're looking at this, and if you then introduce the Internet of Things, that will go from hundreds to thousands. Right? So in that world, if each one of those devices is issued to you a terms of service, I don't know how you're going to manage it unless you have tools in place around it. So that's the bigger question. So what do we do? What do we as individuals do around this? And then the flip question is, what do we do as institutions, right? Whether it's companies or universities or policy-making institutions. The stance that we're taking at Customer Commons, as well as within the VRM world, is that we have to empower both sides. We have to really think about this from, not an us against them, but a marketplace really grows when both sides are empowered. So there's 3 areas that we're looking at very, very closely, and they are, the terms of service have to be fixed. That's going to be driven more from the legal, on downward. When you look at it from a global scale, the Europeans are far ahead of us. The EU has mandates around terms of service, data privacy, data, and all of that. New Zealand has taken a significant leap forward, and there's a sense that it's coming in the U.S. In Asia, it's largely, at this point, non-existent, but that's also a cultural thing. Our goal is to also champion what we're calling the intention economy. The intention economy is this idea that, wouldn't the world be better if somebody came and asked me, or if I could project forward, this is what I'm looking for. And, all of that wrapping together and, for lack of a better term, developing a personal cloud, a data store that we all control, where we could have our rights managed, our data managed in a way that can scale, where we'll have multi-thousand devices in our lives connected to the larger and so forth. And so, that first point, terms of service are broken. Nobody follows them anyway, right? So I think you can read this, but it's a little bit dated, but I think, breaking the seal constitutes acceptance of the, end user license agreement. There's always a way around not following the terms of service, even back in the era of, the CD. So what we're looking at is, how many people have heard of Creative Commons, right? So the Creative Commons model, Lawrence Lessig, who also worked out at the Berkman Center of Harvard Law, spun out a model around how do you get scalable rights management on digital assets. Right? And so he created Creative Commons. And so the Creative Commons model is something that we're looking to model customer commons off of in terms of service. The idea behind Creative Commons was that there's layers of licensing that helps you scale. At the topmost layer, you have the legal code, right? This is the area where you have to actually write out the legal norms for each country so they can adhere to, those norms. You then translate that into human readable because, as we all know, lawyers aren't human. That human readable component is the part that becomes much more usable for us. So when you go to Flickr, it's probably the largest property on the internet that adheres to the Creative Commons legal model, where if I post a picture, I can select what rights I want associated with it. Rights could be that you can take a copy of it, you have to attribute it to me, or you can take a copy and modify it. All of those things you can quickly figure out if you go to Creative Commons website and then use that as the legal terms around your physical asset or digital asset. By way of example, Doc Searles, who's the godfather of all of this, has today north of 65,000 pictures on Flickr. He's a photographer, he's a journalist by trade, so photography came naturally. And his photographs on Flickr today are the most widely used photographs across Wikipedia. That wouldn't be possible unless he could assert his own terms, saying, look, you can take these as long as you link back to me. I'm not looking for any money, but the fact is that I created the picture, so somebody should know that, right? That's why it's such an interesting thing. Then the layer below that is, how do you make all of that machine readable so you can scale it? So put it in the personal cloud where I establish my terms, and if a device comes in, the Nest thermostat into my house, it speaks with my cloud, and it sees my terms. It either agrees or disagrees, and then you can negotiate or whatever it is. And then you push out. Now you've got a real relationship because you've both agreed to the terms. So we're working on, in Customer Commons, a sample of what that will look like in the customer world. So here's a very high-level example.
Can I just take a time check?
Sure.
Sorry, I was supposed to use the 5 minutes. 20 minutes formal presentation. Now
okay. Okay, yeah, in fact, I'm almost done here. So user-submitted terms, right? Of course, the legalese behind this is we're working on right now. Actually, we've got third-year law students assigned to us from the law school that are working on the legalese. But what we're saying is, for an individual, wouldn't it be great if you could go to, a page where you could say, look, on the sharing, you can share my data publicly, or first party or second party, that type of thing. Duration, you can keep my data for infinity or for just a couple of months or whatever it is that you want to set. The purpose, you can use it for ads, or you can just use it for the site or whatever, right? And tracking, don't track me. Don't track me beyond your page. If you could set these terms and assert those, wouldn't the world be better? Because I think then there would be, a better place for us to go. So the other, component to this is this idea of the intention. the world would be better if we could project our intention and companies could capture that as opposed to marketing to us in front of do what I'm calling surveillance marketing, right? So Doc, last year, like, published his second book called The Intention Economy. And he talks about this quite a bit in that. And I don't want to, we're running out of time here, so I don't want to go into the details of it. But
other people may find your book very intriguing. So maybe,
yeah, sure.
Yeah.
But I would.
That's okay, Larry.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not here to promote Doc's book, but again, it's an interesting, interesting reading as well. So, at the end of the day, really, it's all about empowering both sides. David Weinberg and Doc Searle decided to do an update on ClueTrain, and they published it this year. And it's a little bit more snarky. It's also available on the site. There's a lot more, I would say, colorful language because we are no longer in the Garden of Eden. But I think it's also very positive to say, look, the world, as Doc says, he reminds us, it took us millennia to get to clothing. We're 20 years into the internet. We're just at the beginning of the beginning. So the danger is that with the rise of IoT is that there's so much that will be taken from us that if we pause and see where we can step in and be positive, actually I think we'll help the world of the Internet of Things by saying, look, there are some boundaries here that we want to adhere to, right? So my last slide is really just a small tip, and that's as customer comments, we're a nonprofit. One thing we realized that the law school is great, but we need a living institution beyond the project. And so Doc and I and a bunch of others spun out a nonprofit called Customer Commons, where we want to house, be the long-term owner of the things similar to Creative Commons, the legalese and all of that, because the law school will not hold that, right? I mean, they're the theory component, and Doc remains associated with, he's I guess an emeritus fellow there. And like I said, we get third-year law students assigned to us regularly to work on the legal pieces. And it is actually not easy. I'm learning more law than I ever thought I would. Just simplify legal contracts to the point that you can actually scale them. So, finally, just go back to that picture, right? This is sort of the last thing I usually tell big companies. Stop chasing my shadow and ask me to come. Right? By chasing my shadow, you're going to get the wrong impression of who I am. And why target me just because I've wandered onto a website accidentally and then somebody goes to my office, start targeting the ad that is not relevant to me. And it's based off of surveillance advertising. That's really sort of the specific area, by the way, where in 2015, individuals rose up, ad blocking and cookie blocking technology, something, has created an existential crisis in the content. But has real impact. I know one large digital advertiser that just canceled $100 million of their advertising for the year. They've actually laid off their digital ad group in this company because people said, I'm gonna do the blunt force. I'm gonna shut you off. I'm not gonna give you my data by using an ad blocker. That in and of itself, I think, is kind of a dangerous thing. Right? We need to come to a happy medium in between. So that's pretty much my presentation. Definitely open for questions, comments, thoughts.
Great.
Yeah. So let me tell you, like, for example, this whole idea of terms of around terms of service. Companies aren't going to think that it's important until big customers think that it's important. And so the beauty of the fact that you have a massive blend of people, both from a political stripe as well as those that have technical skills as well as legal skills and all that, is an area that we're targeting, and actually it's coming pretty near to fruition, is again, very, very small thing, may sound like a pinprick, but it's huge, is that when you engage with the customer, that you should be required to publish a digitized consent receipt. The way that you have a transactional receipt when you receive, that you should also receive receipts and confirming these are the legal terms. May sound like something that's impossible. However, we just cleared the Kantara group approvals, and it's moving up its way through NIST. If it passes NIST, it will become the federal government's requirement to engage with the federal government that you have to issue consent receipts. Largest customer in America is saying, this is what we want. That's going to force change. Right? And so that's how we're working. Right? This is an army of Davids. Right? This is not, you're not going to take Goliath on with just one person. This is going to take a lot of effort, and that's why I work at Oracle full time. This is my passion as a side thing. Luckily, I have management at Oracle that gets it, because we see a market. Very honest. I mean, look, you know, well, look, I mean, so my new boss at Oracle said, so what do you think the marketplace for this? I said 7.8 billion people. Right? That's kind of big. So I'm going to kind of leave it at that because I don't want to talk too much about Oracle. But the fact is, I have a marketing and sales background, which doesn't seem to fit into this world. I'm attracted to it. We've got the legal folks that are attracted to it. We've got the technical. And so there's enough going on here that you'll start seeing this. And Mozilla, being that they're globally recognized, so their market share has dropped here in the U.S., but in Indonesia, they're 65% market share. In Germany, they're 40%. Is a place where they're recognized. And when they said, look, we stand for the customer, we've taken the stance. And partially, by the way, they feel bad because for the last decade or so, they've been taking $200 million a year from Google. And they feel bad about that now. You know, and they canceled that contract. Now there was Yahoo, but they negotiated a much better contract with Yahoo. That's much more individual centric. Is that they were founded as a nonprofit, and one that was to stand for the individual. Said we've got people that are fighting this fight, right? And so yeah, it's not going to be easy. I don't want to say this is our last best hope, but it is a hope before, I think that there's a lot of things going to happen on the big data side that are going to force the change. We speculate, but companies are hoovering up more data than they should. They're going to get caught. I like to call that, the big data warehouses, the radon gas of the enterprise. Right? It's going to kill somebody someday, because they're going to capture things they shouldn't capture and be held accountable. That balance needs to come.
In other words, devices to device.
Device to device to me is still customer to customer or customer facing, whatever. At some point, somebody has to authorize that device to do something. If you authorize that, and again, as an individual, like we just bought a house and like everybody else here, overpaid for what we bought, but a real estate agent gave me a Nest thermostat. Now I live in this world. I know Nest is owned by Google. I don't want Eric Schmidt watching my temperature readings in my house, right? I wish I could negotiate that, with Google and say, look, it's okay that you can monitor certain things, but I don't want you knowing when I'm coming in and out of my house. And so I looked at that thing as a gift that, that looks really cool, but, I get nervous when Google's entering in. Yeah, when Google's entering into my world. I'm not picking on those guys, because they're pick on. But I think that, that remains the challenge. And I think if we educate enough of the bigger players, and again, if we force changes like at the federal government level, we're saying, look, we need consent. It's just an element of acceptance. We start focusing on it. Now, in Europe, where they have very tight privacy laws, and they have a reason for it. I mean, the fact is that in World War II, the Nazis used corporate data to go get people and kill them execute them. They understand that it's not a good thing to have individual data sitting in places. Right? They have real reasons for it. We kind of sort of don't get it here yet. The Kiwis, small country, they decided certain things. So in the UK, the postal service is taking the lead, saying we will be we will create personal files, which is kind of interesting. So again, there's elements taking place, and really, at the beginning of this year, I thought, I don't want to say all hope was lost, but I thought we were in trouble. But then, at the end of this year, I'm much more positive about the fact that this is actually going to happen. Right? There's elements of this that are going to happen.
I wonder. All that stuff you order stuff goes pretty much rejected. You don't reject. You split together. Or you don't want to get that fixed on phone call, cell phone. You really register. I don't want.
Yeah. Yeah. So the bias needs to shift one. Yeah. And I think
the challenge is I've been working with last 6 months.
Sorry?
Hasn't worked on some project for this way.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at $110 billion. And just in the US, it's $50 billion.
Yeah.
So that's why acceptance. There's a big lobby there.
Well, I think in as much as people complain about, and I do too, about junk mail and all that, the reason it's there is because it works. Right? I can say that today, when you look at the role of the CMO, right? So in many ways, the CMO is in the crosshairs of a lot, because their job is to target and acquire, or at least target. I don't remember the last data set that I looked at, but I think it was something like the average CMO in Fortune 1000 has a tenure of 13 months. They don't last very long, because what happens is they get that initial hit on a game, they can't repeat it because they burn that bridge, whatever that bridge may be. I think that, like I said, something will happen, and I'm not sure what happened, which will shift that focus. When you look at it, there's companies that are pretty successful at understanding their customer but respecting their privacy. Apple, I'm a fan of Apple, so I have to be a little bit biased, but Apple's taken a stand saying, we can't even unencrypt, the phone. It's your data. I'm not sure exactly. I think a lot of that is they're ribbing Google. I don't totally buy, where they are on that. But the fact is that, one of the most successful companies, in the history of mankind is saying privacy matters is a good thing. There's a lot of people in the world of VRM that are purists. We're fighting the man. The man is always evil, no matter who it is. I wake up every day selling software, so I can't be there. But I also see the problems with the man, right? So look, you guys are capturing all this stuff, but it's really not that effective. I mean, if you're getting a 0.5% incremental gain off of something, is that really real? To me, and don't quote me on this, but I use the term, around the modern CMOs that they're essentially a heroin junkie. That's why they move from company to company. They get a quick hit, then they move on to the next one, because they can't repeat what they're doing. I think what we're saying is we, the customer, are saying, I want this. So an example of this, it's an imperfect example because it's who they are and who they are. Is Uber. Uber is an intent task mechanism. Because I need a vehicle to take me from X to Y, I need it here, and I need it. Uber is a VRM issue. they're doing all kinds of data mining to it. But the fact is, they set an example that says, because when you look at Uber, there's two things that Uber did, right? First thing that Uber did was they put the dispatch software in the hands of the request. That to me is brilliant point number one. The second point is they eliminated the financial transactions by saying, look, people that data. You didn't have to care. Right? I traveled globally in the last 6 weeks. I've been everywhere from Latin America to, all over Europe. And at not a single point have I used currency to for transportation. That's a radical change. And that's why you're seeing such massive change in our industry. Uber is imperfect because they still control my data. I want to be able to control the data and push that request out. But they started a change in the industry. Like I said, this is going to be imperfect, but change is coming, I think. That's really what we're trying to say. Thank you.
Yeah. We'll have one.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. 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 I'll stay with him. There we go.
I need to check if it doesn't look like that's HDMI.
Okay, so we need this,
Yeah.
and we need this. Let's close this.